The lethality of their power is greater than ever. Their capacity to impose control over the politically awakened masses of the world is at a historical low. In earlier times, it was easier to control 1 million people than physically to kill 1 million people. Today, it is infinitely easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people.
The American people can be so, the American people are too trusting of our government. And the Madison Avenue shine and luster the propaganda machine has put on the Obama administration. I mean, I've never seen such a beloved president. This adoration goes to a lifelong Marxist-Leninist, intent upon the destruction of the United States of America and the freedom and liberty of we the people.
Happiness. We're gonna spread freedom. Obama's gonna change it. Obama's gonna lead 'em. We're gonna change it and rearrange it. We're gonna change the world.
Some people literally worship him. Certainly Chris Matthews. He's like, I've never seen anyone. I mean, these people are like, they love him so much.
I love you. You complete me.
The feeling most people get when they hear a Barack Obama speech, I felt this thrill going up my leg. I mean, I don't have that too often.
Steady.
No, seriously, it's a dramatic event.
So let's take a look at this. We had the IRS scandal. Let's go in order. We got the Fast and Furious immigration issue to have reasons to put in Rex 84 in the event of civil unrest is all being set up. The FEMA camps, it's all being set up. We now had Fast and Furious. We go to the IRS scandal, targeting patriot groups. Now, of course, the monitoring of phone calls and internet. And this is all to keep us safe, ladies and gentlemen. This is what was done. This is what the Stasi did. This is what the Nazis did. This is what any totalitarian regime has done in history. But don't believe me. Believe your lying commander-in-chief.
When it comes to telephone calls, nobody is listening to your telephone calls. That's not what this program's about. As was indicated, what the intelligence community is doing is looking at phone numbers and durations of calls. They are not looking at people's names, and they're not looking at content. But by sifting through this so-called metadata, they may identify potential leads with respect to folks who might engage in terrorism. If these folks, if the intelligence community then actually wants to listen to a phone call, they've got to go back to a federal judge.
Now that is an absolute lie. The Patriot Act gives them the right. The Patriot Act, all they have to do is they think these people are terrorists and they can do anything. Don't buy these lies. It's just the people, he's standing there and nobody's saying anything. They can do this. It is under the law, the protection of the law. They can invade on your privacy. They have mocked, defiled, and defaced the Constitution and the Fourth Amendment by claiming that the suspicion of someone being a terrorist, they just have to be suspected of being a terrorist, and their records can be legally looked into without warrant. That goes for searching their homes, their cars, their places of business. The way these illuminated elitists have coerced their way into our government is by making legal their crimes. The Federal Reserve Crime Syndicate is a legal crime syndicate. It is a legal counterfeiting operation. It is a legal extortion racket, all under the cover of law. But of course, an unconstitutional law is null and void. But the sheep will not stand up against it. The sheep will not awaken or take action until they're headed down to the slaughterhouse. then once the knife is at their throat, they'll have no chance to resist.
Now, with respect to the internet and emails, this does not apply to U.S. citizens, and it does not apply to people living in the United States.
Really? Well, the National Security Agency's collection of phone data from all of Verizon's U.S. customers is just the tip of the iceberg, says a former NSA official who estimates the agency has data on as many as 20 trillion phone calls and emails by U.S. citizens, totally in contrary to what our criminal-in-chief has reported. William Binney, an award-winning mathematician and noted NSA whistleblower, says the collection dates back to when the super-secret agency began domestic surveillance after the September 11th attacks. I believe they've been collecting data about all domestic calls since October 2001, said Mr. Binney, who works for the NSA for more than 30 years. That's more than 1 billion calls a day. He calls his figure back-on-the-envelope estimates, adding that they include emails as well as telephone calls. Mr. Binney, who left the agency in October 2001, said the data was collected under the highly classified NSA program codenamed Stellar Wind, which is part of the warrantless domestic wiretapping effort, the terrorist surveillance program, launched on orders from President George W. Bush. Now, this is again the whole truth. I go back to the 1996 Telecommunications Act, which made it a mandate for all cell phone companies to have the ability to track cell phones and to be able to tap into those phones by October 2001. Now, how ironic is that, ladies and gentlemen? From Clinton to Bush, from Bush to Obama, from Obama to the next puppet, all down the path to tyranny and world government.
This program, by the way, is fully overseen not just by Congress, but by the FISA court. You can't have 100% security and also then have 100% privacy and zero inconvenience. We're going to have to make some choices.
Don't believe me. Believe your lying commander-in-chief, who is a avowed communist, or I should say socialist, if you wish. I mean, some people get, you start talking about communism because the New World Order happens to have similarities to the Communist Manifesto, as does the Socialist agenda and the Illuminati agenda. They're like one and the same. In fact, the Illuminati are who backed Karl Marx. Karl Marx was backed by the Rothschilds, and the Communist Manifesto was so put into place. And of course, Karl Marx was a Mason. In essence, ladies and gentlemen, we are living in a prison without bars, a prison within our minds. But we can break free if we open our minds to the truth.
First of all, I want to congratulate you and the rest of the media on getting Obama elected.
If your point is that perhaps Barack Obama is in for a new world order, I think you are correct.
Mr. Huxley has recently returned from a conference where the discussion focused on the development of new techniques by which to control and direct human behavior through the application of physical coercion, through the appeal of ideologies, through the manipulation of man's physical and social environment, and more recently through the techniques, the cruder techniques of psychological conditioning.
All revolutions have essentially aimed at changing the environment in order to change the individual.
If somebody wants to build a coal-fired plant, they can. It's just that it will bankrupt them because they're going to be charged a huge sum for all that greenhouse gas that's being emitted.
Sooner or later, you have to bring in an element of persuasion, an element of getting people to consent to what is happening to them. We are in process of developing a whole series of techniques which will enable the controlling oligarchy to get people actually to love their servitude.
To all the young people who are here, I want you to know what I'm going to be asking for. I'm going to be asking for all of you to serve this country.
To love their servitude.
Serve in the military.
People can be made to enjoy a state of affairs which they ought not to enjoy.
Serve in the Peace Corps. Serve in the homeless shelter.
The enjoyment of servitude.
Serve in some capacity for your community.
And that there seems to be a general movement in the direction of this kind of ultimate revolution, this method of control by which people can be made to enjoy a state of affairs which, by any decent standard, they ought not to enjoy. This, I mean, the enjoyment of servitude.
You have to, in a sense, it's required of everybody, 18 to 25, 3 months. Because I think anytime somebody serves their country in some capacity, we're going to be stronger for it.
The scientific dictatorships of the future, and I think there are going to be scientific dictatorships in many parts of the world, but if you can get people to consent to the state of affairs in which they are living, the state of servitude.
And Barack Obama will require you to work.
If you can do this, you are likely to have a much more stable, a much more lasting society, a much more easily controllable society than you would if you were relying wholly on clubs and firing squads and concentration camps.
The Obama transition team is trying to figure out how to harness this support. Some think there is potential to convert political support into social activism, part of an army waiting for new orders.
In the recent history of brainwashing, we see that the Pavlovian methods have been applied systematically.
I think it's going to bring in an era where the president's connected with an army to do his bidding.
A very large army of totally devoted people has been created.
But the question now is, what to do with this young, eager, energetic army?
We cannot continue to rely only on our military in order to achieve the national security objectives that we've set. We've got to have a civilian national security force that's just as powerful, just as strong, just as well funded.
But then we come to the consideration of other techniques for inducing consent.
A light will shine down. You will experience an epiphany.
First of all, there are the methods connected with straight suggestion and hypnosis.
You will say to yourself, I have to vote for Barack.
Human populations can be categorized according to their suggestibility. This is a matter of enormous political importance. For example, any demagogue who is able to get hold of a large number of these 20% and to organize them is really in a position to overthrow any government in any country.
We have an ace up our sleeves, ladies and gentlemen. We have the truth on our side. Yes, we can fight tyranny. Yes, we can restore our constitutional republic. And yes, we will destroy the New World Order. Thank you for watching Truth Talk News.
Obama's gonna change it. Obama's gonna lead 'em. We're gonna change it and rearrange it. We're gonna change.
The lethality of their power is greater than ever. Their capacity to impose control over the politically awakened masses of the world is at a historical low. In earlier times, it was easier to control 1 million people than physically to kill 1 million people. Today, it is infinitely easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people.
The American people can be so, the American people are too trusting of our government. And the Madison Avenue shine and luster, the propaganda machine has...
The world.
Some people literally worship him. Certainly Chris Matthews. He's like, I've never seen anyone. I mean, these people are like, they love him so much.
I love you. You complete me.
The feeling most people get when they hear...
Put on the Obama administration. I mean, I've never seen such a beloved president. This adoration goes to a lifelong Marxist-Leninist intent upon the destruction of the United States of America and the freedom and liberty of we the people.
Happiness. We're gonna spread